again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. We've got a good topic for you today, so let's dive into it. As a kid, what was the creepiest thing about another kid's family? Please remember to like, share, welcome to Earth, Isaac, and subscribe. Not creepy, but really sad. In 4th grade, I was a really bright kid and used to score at the top of my class. I had a friend whose mom used to be really impressed by me and asked my mom if her son, my friend, could come by to my house daily to study with me and that she'd pay us for this, to which my mom said yes. She wasn't paying anything special, but I felt good having my friend with me throughout the day, so my mother and siblings would treat him like a family member, like they treated me. One day, he took me to his house to meet his mom. When he opened the door, his mom came to greet me. She was always very happy to see me being with her son because she thought I was a good influence for him. I noticed her face was badly bruised, to a point that it was half blue, and that she was trying to hold back her tears. I was just a kid back then, so I didn't realize what was going on. I thought she might have fallen or something. His mom would always try to act really jubilant and happy in front of me. She even made us snacks in that condition. When I went back home, I told my mom that my friend's mom was injured in the face. My mom realized what was going on and called her to our house the next day. When she came, she revealed that her husband was really abusive and had had an affair with another woman with whom he had a daughter. She had a master's degree and was a really intelligent person, but she couldn't leave him because she didn't want his son's life ruined. Her family was also not supportive, so she had nowhere to go and no choice other than to put up with his abuse. My friend also had an elder brother who was also a really depressed kid because of what he had seen in his house his entire life. After a year, my friend changed schools and he stopped coming to our house to study with me. I later found out that his elder brother died in a car accident and his mother had to leave him because his father had divorced her and his father's side of the family took possession of my friend. Fortunately, my friend had an uncle who was an engineer and a really nice person who hadn't married, so he took responsibility of my friend and raised him and helped him financially. I still meet that friend from time to time and tried a few times to inquire about his mom, but he never brings up her topic. Fortunately, he just finished university as a computer scientist and is going good in his life now. He's still living with that uncle and I'm happy that things turned out good for him. My mom still asks me about my friend's mother from time to time, but sadly, no one knows what happened to her. It's unbelievable to think what lengths mothers can bear just for the betterment of their child. I hope she's doing better wherever she is now. His basement was a total mess, like hoarder style, but that's where the computer was. I was there for a sleepover and my friend fell asleep, so I was alone really late in this dark landfill and I started hearing a loud rustling coming from somewhere, followed by a splash. I freaked out and woke my friend and told him his shit was water ghosts, and he, half asleep, goes, "What? No, dude, that's just a turtle." So they had a very large turtle that spent its days burrowing through garbage in search of the kiddie pool they had set it up. I didn't even know there was a kiddie pool. Never saw it. Too much trash. Knew a boy who I briefly befriended at school. I think he was troubled. I remember one day inviting him round and he started all very polite and nice, but at one point it was like a switch just went and he was some other kid, just strange, really crazy. Hyperactive, out of control to the extent that 10-year-old me simply asked him to leave, which he did, or so I thought. Hours later, my dad was like, "That kid's still here? Did he not go home already?" Kid was straight up just walking around the house. I didn't even notice him. Being a little hyperactive as a kid, it can happen, so I wouldn't be too concerned with that, but asking someone to leave and they don't, that's not cool. Sounds like an ex. This isn't creepy, but more depressing. As a child, I had a best friend who was the oldest child in her family. She had 2 siblings who she would take care of daily. The only reason she called me to come over was to take care of her siblings because her parents were careless and wouldn't take care of their own children. Every time I went to their house, it was a mess. Her parents would be knocked out drunk or out of town. Her parents treated her as a slave and couldn't care less about her mental health. Her siblings, on the other hand, would throw toys around and knock things over. I tried my best to help her out, but it just wouldn't work. It's been 4 years since I even talked to her. We ended our friendship after an argument. I hope she's doing all right. I had a friend that had a really weird stepfather. He had a bio daughter who he very openly favored and spoke about in an intensely proud way, like almost over the top, bordering on infatuation. Shit was weird. He would crudely bully and insult me and other friends that went over there, calling me thunder thighs and mocking another because he was suspicious she was bulimic. I stopped going over altogether when my friend said she found her digital camera in his office with recently taken photos of her sleeping on them. Ugh. So I just met this kid, around the same age as me, I'll call him Jay, when I was about 9 or 10, and we became instant friends. He lived only a block away. One time he invited me to his grandpa's house to play in his backyard. I said yes, and the instant I went in, it smelled like burnt plastic, and there were dolls everywhere. Some were even hung on the ceiling and the walls by strings or nails. I met his grandpa, who seemed nice, but he gave me a creepy vibe. He said I was a really pretty girl, and said he liked my shorts. I said thank you and moved on. After an hour, I walked back home and told my mom, since I thought it was weird their house had so many dolls. Then what his grandpa said. My mom yelled at me and banned me from going near that house. The mom had a weird fascination with spiders, specifically tarantulas. She had a giant terrarium or something with at least 7 different tarantulas, each in their own little compartment. She always wanted to show me, and when I would say that I didn't like spiders, she would shame me and tell me that they're not harmful, that they're friends. My next door neighbor had a little Shih Tzu dog they loved. My parents were not animal lovers. When it was the dog's birthday, the family got a cookie cake with frosting on top and put it on the floor and let the dog lick all the frosting off. Then they ate the cookie cake. No way. My parents were effing appalled, like they lost all respect for the adult members of that family. I thought it was gross too, but didn't have the grown-up level repulsion that my parents did. I had friends who were brother and sister, both adopted. They weren't biologically related to each other or to their parents. The sister was 4 years older than the brother. I was mainly friends with her, but he hung around with us a lot while I was over. Their house was huge, and one time when I was over there, I found a room I hadn't been before that was basically a shrine. There were 2 giant photos of a little boy and girl who I didn't recognize. I asked my friend about it, and she told me that they were her brother and sister who died before she was born, as in, their parents had a boy and a girl who both died at the same time in a tragic accident. They then adopted 2 kids who had the same hair and eye colors, gender, and age difference of their dead children. She also went on to explain that that's why they weren't allowed to change anything about their rooms. They each got the bedroom of the kid they were replacing and had to keep the same bedding and decorations. The way the girl explained it was, Mom and Dad lost their first kids, so God sent us to fill their place. As an adult, I can't imagine the pain of losing both your children at the same time in some horrific and totally preventable freak accident. That's got to be everyone's worst nightmare. But the fact that they basically adopted replacements, there's no way that those kids weren't effed up by that. I lost contact with them decades ago. At the time, I think we were all too young to understand how weird that was. I just hope that their parents were able to adjust when they grew up and inevitably had their own lives and personalities. The I was sent by God to fill the hole left by some kid I never met mindset that they were raised with sounds like a recipe for future identity crisis. I mean, that is equal parts tragic, heartbreaking, and sad, and creepy and weird, and probably right about the identity thing. Hopefully everything worked out. I lived close to 2 religious nuts at various points in childhood. The first one was before I even started school. I remember the kids smelled like mayonnaise, and they were not allowed to play with certain action figures because the parents thought they were demonic. I brought a Nightcrawler action figure once because Mayo Boy was interested when he was at my house, but the dad flipped out. I was like 5 or 6 at the time. Those parents always made me uncomfortable, and I hated when my parents made me go over there to play with their kids. The other was a few years later, after we moved to a different city. The boy behind us was super weird, and also had religious nut parents. The only pictures in the house were Jesus with candles with Jesus' face. It looked like a cult setup or something because there were so many candles and Jesus faces everywhere. The weirdest thing was like this kid was not allowed to have an imagination or something. We were in elementary school and playing with trucks in the dirt, and his parents chided him for making his truck fly because trucks really can't fly. It was so bizarre. I wasn't surprised he was in special education classes because his parents did not seem to stimulate him intellectually. Basically, my whole hometown was part of a cult. Not the Waco kind, but common Christianity. Really frowned upon people like my family for not going to church. Regardless, I wasn't too well aware of this, and neither were other kids my age seemingly. I called someone from school to see if they wanted to hang out. They said yes, so I biked over. When I got there, his older brother met me in the driveway and said that he couldn't hang out. Didn't occur to me that me being a sinful non-believer until my parents had to explain what was going on. This is my main standout memory of that whole deal. But as a whole, every family that belonged to that cult were similarly weird to some extent. Like grown adults saying that my whole family is going to burn in hell for how we lived. The school also had a bullying problem, as anyone not in the cult had a target on their backs, but the school couldn't do anything because when they called parents, all they said was, "Oh, no worries, he prays for forgiveness on Sundays." That was a big thing for them. They could do all the wrong, but it was all right as long as they prayed for forgiveness in Sunday church. Personally, I was never targeted that badly. I grew up big and tall pretty quickly, so I wasn't an easy target even for older kids. So yeah, cult families were pretty creepy in many ways. Unsurprisingly, it was really great when we moved away from there. I hope people hear this, the followers that we have, but when I was younger, I had a similar situation, sort of religion based, but not. I was 9, and I remember it to this day, and I don't remember much about my youth, but that was my innocence lost because I was different than other people and I wasn't invited. I grew up Catholic, and my best friend, when I was 9 to 11 years old, was Mormon. One day I had dinner at my friend's house, and I did the sign of the cross and silently prayed before digging in. I was not confronted about this in the moment, but later my friend apologetically told me that their super religious parents were horrified and angered by my silent acknowledgement of my own faith in their house. I was warned, through many awkward apologies, that doing anything like that again may mean I wouldn't be welcomed in their house again, or possibly even allowed to spend time with my friend again. I was like 10. I was wholly flabbergasted, and always found my friend's parents creepy and weird after that. Not a typical type of creepy, I know, but even as a child, that religious devotion to a degree that anything representing an alternative belief system must be cast out or silenced made those people super creepy to me forever after that. I never wanted to be near those people again.